Hi everyone, Ash here. My guest today is Mark Haze, all the way from South Africa. Hi Mark, how are you?
Hey, good, thanks. How are you doing?
Okay, thank you. Tell me what the weather's like there. Make me jealous.
It's pretty sunny and nice and balmy out here. Yeah, we're having a good one, a good summer.
Are you in Joburg?
No, I'm in Cape Town.
In Cape, oh, I love, I was born there in Cape Town.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In Pineland, or
I,
Pinelands, I should say.
that's pretty close to where I am. I'm in Durbanville in the northern suburbs.
Okay, very nice. I miss Cape Town, honestly. Anyway, this is about you.
A little
Okay.
nostalgia.
Oh, yes. Mark, tell us how you started in music, from what age?
Well, I think I was about four when I was asked to. My grandfather was a pastor at a church,
Okay.
and he called me up on stage to sing a hymn, to which I was extremely embarrassed. But that's when the singing kind of began. But I was always very shy.
Yeah.
Singing was not really on my radar. When I turned, I think it was six. My grandmother kind of urged my parents to send me for piano lessons. So I picked that up at about 6 years old. And then at 7 years old, I went to watch my uncle's band and I
Okay.
heard the electric guitar for the first time and I was hooked from there on out. So I begged and pleaded and I said, please, can we just get me a guitar? And they bought me the crappiest guitar they could find, thinking this is probably just going to be a fad, and or a phase, I suppose. And
Yeah.
I stuck it out, and I really just wanted to be Eric Clapton or Brian May. They were really, and Hendrix. They were my
Yeah.
heroes. I just wanted to be a great guitarist. And when I left high school, I formed my first band, and we held auditions for I think like nearly 2 or 3 months to try and find a
Wow.
singer. And I
Okay.
kept singing the songs for these guys as they were coming in. And every time they would come in, one guy turned around literally and he was like, "That is not going to work. That is impossible to sing. No one can sing that." And I would say, "Dude, I'm singing it. What are you talking about? If I can sing it, then anyone can sing it." And as it
Exactly.
turns out, yeah, I just never took notice of the fact that I have a unique voice and I have a style of my own. I just wanted to be a great guitarist and play in a band. That was always my dream. So, and here I am, 100 years later as a solo artist, singing, writing songs. Yeah, but I'm interested in lots of instruments. So I've from the piano I went to the guitar, picked up the drums, tried out the trumpets. I can do a little bit of that, a bit of harmonica, and like a jack of all trades, sort of thing. So that's
Right.
really how I became a producer, through the midst of all of it, being able to kind of understand the various different instruments, or at least the style of instruments and how they work,
Right.
and that helps me a lot when I'm working with different artists.
Oh, well, fantastic. Your day must be quite busy, with writing music, producing music, singing,
Yeah,
etc. It must be
yeah.
quite a busy schedule for you.
It is. I like to keep busy. My friends know me that way. I don't. I kind of hate sitting still. Even when
Yeah.
we want to go to places, I'm normally the one that goes like, "Look, let's go and bowl, or let's go to an arcade, or let's
Yeah.
do laser tag or something like that." I don't. I just. I'm not. I like dinner conversation. Don't get me wrong, but I'm
Yeah.
also keen on like going out and doing stuff. So my day is structured as like it's just a pretty busy day. A lot of musicians kind of spend their days waiting for the night to come so that they can get on stage and do their thing.
Yeah.
Whereas I fill my day with studio, and then in the night I go play some shows and yeah, come
Right.
back, travel a lot, stuff like that. Yeah, but I like it. It's something I wasn't able to do for a lot of my life.
Yeah.
Being a South African, you'll understand that we now have full-time musicians and that sort of thing. But growing up, when I grew up, it was not an option. You would never really meet a full-time musician, and that sort of thing was really kind of starting out when only when I was about in my early 20s.
Okay.
And the dream of being able to do this full-time was just kind of like it doesn't work that way. Even some of our most famous bands from our country, like the Parlotones, they
Yeah.
they professed all the time that they had day jobs. They worked in the day, and then at night they try to work at their craft and do studio things and film their videos and stuff like that. And only once I'd entered South African Idol, did I actually get the opportunity to get signed and go full time into it. So
Wow.
I think it's been 13 years of me doing it full time now.
Good
Quite a
grief.
while.
You just
Yeah.
mentioned that you entered South African Idol. Can you tell us what it was like?
Well, up until that point, like I said, I was doing regular work in the day, and then it's funny. You got to take your hat off to the musicians who are pulling the double shifts. What we used to do we had a band called 12th Avenue, me and my friends, and we were doing fairly well. We were starting to work our way up the charts. We had 2 number 1s on some of the various radio stations out here,
Wow.
and we were doing tours. So you take like your annual leave from work, and that annual leave, like the 3 weeks, you'd use that to go and tour the country. So as far as the people watching us on stage knew, they just knew us as 12th Avenue, and then you'd come back and you'd be exhausted, and your boss would look at you like, "Why are you so tired? You just had 3 weeks leave." And you're going, I did my other job while this was
Yeah.
happening, and we're trying to work our way to the point where we could leave our day jobs and actually go into it full time. And we were almost there. And our manager, the typical rock and roll story, he messed us around. He stole a lot of our money,
Oh
misinformed us
no.
on a few things, some bad investments and things like that. And it started to fall apart. And at that point, I had just taken a trip to the States to meet with Fueled by Ramen, Paramore's label, Panic at the Disco's label. We had begun some conversation there about potential options for them to sign us, and I also had a few meetings with Atlantic Records. So when we went to the States to go do that, my wife said she'd come with. We didn't have kids back then, and
Right.
my brother and sister-in-law came in. We thought we'd make instead of just going up there to do business, because there's always that thought of this could potentially be bad news. You might not get the deal or that sort of thing. So it was
Sure.
to do the meetings. And we thought we'd do like Disney World and visit New York City and do the sort of things that like tourists would do.
Yeah.
And it's good we did that, because the meetings didn't go like we wanted to. Fuel by Ramen was really great. And they said, look, we're going to focus on Paramore, and we're going to focus on Panic at the Disco. And we've all seen how well they've all done in the last decade.
Yes.
So that didn't work out as I wanted it to. And Atlantic Records was just a straight out no. We've got enough rock artists. We don't need any more.
Wow.
And it's all cool. I took it on the chin. It was a bit of a downer for me, because at that point, like everything we had worked for in the band for the last 10 years was kind of coming to a fold. And on the flight there, my wife and sister-in-law and brother-in-law, they'd been urging me to enter American Idol Experience, which is I would call it an attraction at Disney World,
Okay.
at Universal Studios. And I said, nah, if it's at Universal Studios, it's got to just be like a ride, It's just probably
Yeah.
just a bit of fun, a bit of goof, and that's totally fine. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do the roller coasters and kind of get my head out of my arse and just carry on going. And as it happened, we got to the park the one day, and there was a parade going on, and we couldn't get through the parade because they normally block the whole street.
Okay.
And the only way was to go kind of the opposite way around the attraction and go the other end. And as we walked through that side of the park, there was American Idol Experience, and they looked at me and they were like, "Come on, just do it, just for us, just please do this for
Oh.
us." So I said, yeah, okay, whatever. It's a goof. Let's go. And I sang. I was so cocky, and I did Bohemian Rhapsody. And the producer sitting at the chair looked at me and he was like, "Look, I'm going to put you through because there's something special about you. But I want you to sing properly. I want you to sing an actual song." And I looked at him and I said, "Come on, dude. You know what this is? It's just a game. Just goofing around. I want to go do the Aerosmith ride. Leave me alone, And he looked at me and he said to me, "You understand what you're doing here?" So I said, "No." He says, "We're from Fremantle, and we own the rights to American Idol, and this is actually a scouting mission.
What?
And if you do well in this, then we'll put you through with a golden ticket. You don't have to stand in the queues in America, and the queues in America are quite large compared to the South African one.
Yeah.
I mean, you took a couple of million per city and things like that. People
Jeez.
come from all over to a central place. Ours is a lot smaller, even though it's quite large, and you do wait for hours before you get seen. And I won the whole thing, a golden ticket given to me, and confetti came down from the ceiling, and everyone in Disney World knew who I was after that, because they broadcasted out to all the screens when the final happens,
Wow.
So, and there was me, all touristed up, like with shorts on and like looking like a real tourist, not looking rock and roll at all. And the crew were very cool. We spoke after I came back from the States. They spoke to me a lot, saying that they would love to get me on the show, and it would be quite a cool thing to say I'm from South Africa. And now you see on American Idol, you see quite a lot of foreigners getting on the show. But at that point in time, it hadn't actually been done yet. I wasn't really keen on being the first person to give that a go, because I didn't want to. It's called American Idol for a reason. It's an American Citizen, in my opinion, was where it was at. And then you had Nigerian Idol and South African Idol and Pop Idol in the UK and stuff like that. So I didn't want to break the mold. as well, having a day job meant that it would be very hard to try and get like the time off again and a new visa and things like that. The troubles that come with being a South African now, we don't
Of
get visas as
course.
easily as the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And I woke up one morning and they phoned me and I said, okay, guys, we're going to call it a day. Thank you so much. You've been wonderful. It was a great experience and I'll never forget it. And then they said, look, if you want, we could call SA Idol and tell them a bit about you. And I said, no, don't do that. I don't like getting, I don't know, it's maybe because I grew up in Bellville, which is a pretty poor part of Cape Town, but like we don't really deal with handouts and stuff like that. And it wasn't a handout, I see that, but I
Yeah.
just, I don't know, something in my psyche was like, nah, please don't give me an edge over everyone else. If I get something, I want to do it on my own merit.
Of
I hate
course.
those sort of things. But I wasn't going to enter. I don't know what came over me, but my wife woke up in the morning and she said to me, tomorrow I'm going to go see friends, or I've got this whole weekend planned and girls' weekend and stuff like that for someone who's getting married, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and she said, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know, but I don't really have anything planned. And, the auditions are tomorrow, so maybe I'll just get up and go. And then the excitement hit the room and, the family's going, like, oh, what are you going to sing? What are you going to do? And I said, actually, I have freaking no idea what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and stand there. And if it irritates me too much, I'm going to walk away and leave
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So I did. I stood in the queue and I just listened to everyone, practicing and working out things, and the excitement builds in the air and it's really great. And I walked in the door to do the first round. You don't really do it in front of judges. You first do it in front of a producer,
Okay.
or a scout. I think it's a scout. And that you don't see this on television, but you do it in front of a scout. The scout qualifies you, or tells you if you're really good. Also, if you're
Yeah.
really bad, they also put you through so that you can be on the laughing stock side of things, where
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
make the gag reel. So I got past the scout. I sang a song from Avril Lavigne, Keep Holding On.
Yeah.
Where it came from, I don't know. I just worked it out on the spot, sang a verse and a chorus and got it done.
Yeah.
And then I got through to the producers round and they were very, very excited. And then I got through to the judges round and they were completely blown away by that. And I had no idea that they would even like it. I thought, well, no one's going to care for this. I'm too rock and roll. And then, the show went on. I got in. I made the top 100. We went through and did all the group rounds, and I just kept growing, and the fan base kept growing. And I just used the opportunity. I thought to myself, look, if I could at least get someone to pay attention, maybe the band could get signed by a label, and we could continue the 12th Avenue train,
Yeah.
and roll along with it. And somewhere during it just took off and took off. And by the time I hit the top 5, I remember calling my boss, who used to work in Ireland, and he said to me, as he picked up the phone, he just said, "You're not coming back, are you?" And I said, "Yeah, man. They tell us not to quit our jobs at this process because when the show's done, you do lose a lot of steam, and a lot of people
Yeah.
don't get to see what goes on because you're not actively on television anymore. After that, you have to hit the streets and you have to go
Sure.
play tours." And I said, "Yeah, but I've seen the other side of this now, and I think I know what to do when I get out of here." So he said, "Fair enough. Good luck with it, Godspeed, and go
Yeah.
ahead." And I ended up coming second place in the show. Got a recording contract, released the first album. The album did better than the winner's album did, and it just has
Wow.
been kind of like an avalanche from there. And I've since walked away from Universal Music. They're a big label and a good label, and they were good to me. Work with someone smaller now, just because I've got a bit more creative control over that sort of thing. But it's 13 years later, and I'm still very much the master of my craft here. Like I make the call on where I go and what I do, and that's really cool. So when I needed the guidance, I was with a label that gave me the guidance, and now that not that I
Yeah.
don't need guidance, but when I do, I've got someone to ask. But most of the time, I kind of know what creative stream I'm going to pull out, what style of music I'm going to make, or
I think that's
who
much
I'm going to work with,
better.
especially as a producer.
Yeah.
For
I
me, it
totally
is. I
agree.
think for some people, not so much. A lot of I like to work with a lot of new artists, and I try to find the ones that don't really have the budget to get a big studio or get
Okay.
in there. Because I run a boutique studio here in Cape Town, and we keep it small and simple, and I like to share as much experience and advice as possible,
Yeah.
so that when they do go somewhere bigger, they know what to expect, and they at least know how things can go bad or how it can go really right, and then it's up to them from there on out. But it's almost like a catchment program where I'm trying to get a hold of people who particularly get looked over,
Right.
and I can maybe get a single out. So I've been doing that now for the last like 2-3 years since COVID. The recording studio was kind of my retirement plan, as it were, but it's now actually something that I do full time with as Mark Haze as well.
Yeah.
And it keeps me busy. It almost reminds me a little bit of the old life where I had a job in the day. I kept busy. I keep going. I just, one day you blink and this whole life is done. And so I just want to make sure I do as much of it, of what I
As you
can while
can,
I'm still
yeah.
here.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
Mark, I think it's such a fantastic thing that what you're doing. You helping other musicians, you helping them obviously produce their music. Do they come and sing in your studio and you produce their song?
Yeah, the type of producer that I dabbled in production a little bit. Obviously, I co-produce my own stuff. So,
Yeah,
and having a band before that, and I've done some session work where I do some instrumental guitar for other bands and that sort of thing, and some backing vocals and whatnot. So the type of producer that I was an unlearned producer, meaning that I don't know how to use the sound desk or how any of the machines work. I just know
okay.
what I hear. I know about the arrangement. So I would sit kind of like Bob Rock used to, next to the engineer,
Yes,
guide the band, rework the songs, things like that. But when COVID came, we were trapped at home for the longest time, and I had some studio gear here that I was dabbling with for when I do demos, to
right.
track some stuff down. At least it solves the process of how it's going to be recorded. So I would do that at home. So I did some online courses and I figured out how the systems work and all the stuff that was in my head and that I picked up with my ear. Like I would hear something and go like, well, that's clearly there's a frequency there that's freaking me out. And I need to, and you'd tell the engineer there's a frequency that's really like shocking. It's hitting my ear really hard. And
Yeah,
they know from a translation that it's a top line frequency, like 10K or something like that, that needs to be toned down. But I then studied that and figured it out. And now I can engineer and produce. So what happens now is I looked around. I know the cost of getting a studio. I know the cost of getting a producer. It's quite immense, and rightfully so. A lot of the guys that are doing it and able to do it, they've earned the right to charge what they charge.
right.
But at the same time, I also understand the other end of it, that some great acts can fall through the cracks if they don't get the opportunity to give this a go and track it properly. And any artist knows when they make their first demo, it's usually crap.
Right,
My
right.
first four demos were awful and horrid. Luckily we coasted through and eventually got signed. But so that's what I offer. When someone comes to me and they go, look, we want to track a new song. We've written the song. Can you help co-write with us? Can you do whatever with us? And that's what I do. We offer what's available. We've got rates and stuff that we work with, but most of the time when it's a case of like, look, maybe they've got two songs, but they've got an idea for a third and the third's really killer.
Yeah.
We'll throw the third one in for free. Why not? Just because
Oh,
the
that's
more the
nice.
merrier, better material. Yeah, it's a work in progress. Like I said, it's boutique. So
Yeah,
I don't want to like break the bank on this sort of thing. I've got Mark Haze as an entity. It earns well. I tour a lot. I've got a lot going. So it's not my give back. It still earns me money, but it's
yeah,
also a case of where I don't have to charge them an arm and a leg, and we can still get quality material out there because it's mastered correctly and it's mixed correctly, and we use the right equipment to get it done.
yeah.
And at the same time, I produce and I help with ideas. I find with the artists that come back to me for their second and third recordings and things like that, they've picked up some knowledge, so it's not such a difficult process. We don't have to explain as much to them, and then they've got it. And then if they choose to never come back to me, that's great. I've sent them on their way with enough. With they're
Yeah.
fully equipped to be able to handle themselves in front of anyone, and no one's going to bullshit them. No one's going to tell them, "Oh yeah, by the way, this microphone doesn't work for you because you've got this sort of voice." They've experienced that with me already, and they can go, "No,
Right.
no, I want to sing through that microphone because I know that mic works. We did it on this recording,
Yeah.
and whatever else." Plus, the door's always open. I tend to make friends with everyone I work with, so you get a phone call going. I received a call going, "There's a label that wants to sign me. They want to do this particular deal with me." Without hesitation, I say, send me the contract. Let me have a look at it. We find a couple of snags in there, a couple of things they need to kind of amend and have changed before they sign the deal. Or maybe they shouldn't sign the deal because it's dodge, stuff like that. And that's because I experienced all of these bad things. I just thought to myself, like, wouldn't it be great if there was just someone who could just help, just so that like things get better from here on out?
Yeah.
Because musicians, I think worldwide, as a collective, a lot of people go like, well, no one helped me. Why should I help anyone else? And while I do understand that sentiment, and it's hard because a lot of people who make it to the big time, they know that it was their tenacity that pushed them through and that sort of thing. But sometimes just a little bit of kindness goes a long way.
I agree.
I mean, Bieber would be nowhere if it wasn't for Usher. That's kind of how I look at it. And I go, yeah, Usher didn't have to take this guy and send it off to the record label. He didn't have
Yeah.
to, but he did. And now you got one of the world's biggest superstars coasting and doing some great things all over the world. Just because one guy decided, like, yeah, I like this. Let me forward it on in case you haven't seen it. Here you go.
Yeah.
So it's That's the idea.
Wow. I think it's so fascinating because when you're talking about microphones, are there different microphones for different voices? How does that work?
They all work in different ways. I mean, they because of the tube in there, or the you get valve microphones and things like that, and because
Yeah.
of the way the capsules are all built, they're all done individually. And there are hundreds of different microphones out there. They're the most famous ones, like the Neumann, and that
Yeah.
sort of thing, that everyone goes like, this is the go-to. But because certain artists like Michael Jackson used it, and the SM7B, that's usually used in radio broadcast and that sort of thing, is great for demos. But I mean, I know for a fact there's a band here in South Africa that does really well called Prime Circle,
Yes.
and I know Ross, who used to be the singer for Prime Circle, he did all his demo tracking and guide vocals on an SM7B, and
Okay.
I'd say 70% of the time those are the vocal takes that actually make it to the cutting room floor, and
Right.
they end up on the final draft. So that microphone works for Ross; it works great. Radio DJs swear by that mic, but certain microphones pick up certain nuances in certain rooms.
Yeah.
There's so many factors to it. Like, you might bring that one microphone to my studio and it might be picking up the way the room is built. It's not quite completely dead, like the $1 million studios, like Abbey Road, for example, and things like that.
Yeah.
And it won't work the same way in that room. So to say that that is the specific microphone that will work specifically for that voice, it's a little bit closed-minded. I know with my albums, we often venture through different microphones. I mean, my engineer, Sergio, he one day he put up, I think it was 6 different microphones in the booth, really right next to one another.
Wow.
And I sang a take on each one. And then we listened back to it and went like, okay, well, this is clearly working on these two. These are the options. And sometimes you end up doing a chorus on a different microphone because of you want a bit more shrill, you want a bit more
Yeah.
sharpness. So everything can be affected later on through reproduction and processing, but the cleaner you can get something to be in the initial recording, that's what you want to go for. It's why we treat our rooms. It's why we soundproof everything. We don't want sounds bouncing off a wall or
Sure.
reflections and things like that coming through. So yeah, microphones can play a big part. But that being said, I recorded a take on a really cheap PreSonus microphone that actually came with the sound card.
Yeah.
Tracked some backing vocals on that, played them back, and went like, well, that sounds damn near as good as anything else is going to sound. So left it on the take, and it's in the recording now. And 30,000
Fantastic.
streams later, everything, the song's still fine because people are tracking it. It's
Wow.
not always about perfection in the tone.
Yeah.
Look at some of the greatest artists in the world, Zeppelin, the Beatles, things like that. Yeah, they recorded in great studios, but like if you take I'm forgetting the name of the song, but there's a track from Led Zeppelin that clearly goes out of time. And they
Yeah.
kept it in the take because why not? And it's the human element that makes the song insane. So you want to keep some of those things in. Sometimes we leave breath in, sometimes we take breath out, depending on. If you listen to Whitney Houston, for example, you can almost always, if you go now, you're going to go listen to her songs now, some of her greatest singles, you can almost always hear her breathing. You can
Yeah.
hear her taking huge gasps and things like that. But her breath work was so controlled that it actually suits the song. And it gives it so much more intensity than when you clean up the vocals, like a lot of the time we tend to do. So I'm that sort of producer. Like what's right for the song, what's right for the artist is what's right. Just because people don't want that happening, in the studied side of things,
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it shouldn't be there. There are many overtones on the Beatles' music that make the song really great. And if it was done in a proper professional recording studio today, they wouldn't have allowed those things to happen because there's bleed on the microphone into the drum set, from the drum set, for example, and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
if it wasn't for that bleed, you wouldn't have gotten that sound, and that sound is what makes that song complete. So yeah, there are various arguments for this, but that's how I feel about that
Wow.
process.
That's interesting. I really find that so interesting. It brings it opens my eyes to new things. So that makes sense.
And stuff like that, that's what keeps me happy and
Yeah.
excited, is that it's never cut and dry. It's not a one size fits all sort of formula. You got to, and a lot of musicians, because there are a lot of new, or the ability to record at home now is just so frequent. Now anyone can do it. every kid I know has got GarageBand on their iPad, and they can grab, like, Reaper is free to get, and obviously people are getting like hacked versions of or cracked versions of Ableton and stuff like that
Yeah.
to put their stuff together. So anyone can really do it, even if you don't want to buy a license. There are illegal ways to get a studio in your room, but and they're learning things through things like, and it's wonderful. These tools are positive tools. YouTube has all these tutorial videos on how to do these things. But what's happening is I listen to music now, and I hear a lot of mundane and the same. Just because Charlie Puth decided to do that, now everyone wants to do it, and that's fine. That's how an influencer works. And not to take away from Charlie, like he's an incredible producer and an innovator. He really did innovate a lot of those things, but it's what makes him sound like him. But the problem is that everyone goes like, well, I want to sound like Charlie Puth, or I want to sound like Ariana Grande. And, sometimes you got to look at it and go, but they sound like that because they sound like that. I'm not going to try and sound like them. In fact, for a guy like me, and I hope people listening who are taking this in go, it's been done. It's time for me to find something else to do. Don't copy, don't clone, don't be someone else.
For
I think a
sure.
lot of the older generation that appreciate a lot of the music. It's why this music is still around. Like the music from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s it's still quite prolific to a lot of people. And those songs, they're called anthemic now. But what those people were really doing is they were just not interested in sounding like anyone else. David Bowie would purposefully change the way he sang in order to not sound like another artist. Prince would purposefully distort the SSL desk in order to get more of a crackled sound on something, because he didn't want it to be as clean as Bob Seger, for example. So, and that's what's missing, in my opinion, from a lot of artists that are out now. This one you listen to someone on the radio, and if you're not really listening carefully, you might go, wait a minute, is this so-and-so or is it so-and-so? Like, because you get a bit confused in the tones and the sound, because a lot of people are kind of copying a style or running a trend. And I hope that changes. Now, it was a big revolution in the 90s when grunge came in and Nirvana came in, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam. Now, these are grunge bands, for example, but the whole idea was they did not dress up for the stage. They wouldn't cut their hair. Their guitars looked like crap. But it was because they were just going like, I don't want to be like the glam bands. I don't want to be like the incredible stage show, and that it's all about our music and it's all about our sound, and that's what we want to sound like. And it feels like it may happen soon that people decide to go, I'm done with the status quo. I'm going to do something that's completely hellishly different. It does still happen. Look at Billie Eilish. That's a completely different way of performing. I would never have thought to do that, which is what makes her so unique. And everyone has gravitated towards her because it's like, okay, cool. You don't have to be yelling and screaming on a song.
Exactly.
You can be super intimate and intense, like that sort of thing. And it's great.
Well, anyway, Mark, I must say we're actually out of time. But before we go, I'd just like to thank you for taking time out of your day to come and chat with us. And if you could just tell everybody where they can follow you and to get your music.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show.
No,
I really
pleasure.
appreciate it. Let's definitely do it again.
Definitely.
Maybe we should talk I tend to talk for a while. So, yeah.
No, I really enjoyed it. I really have. But
thank you.
I'm sure we'll catch up soon.
Wants to,
yes.
Definitely, yeah. If anyone wants to catch up with me and see what's going on with me, I'm on Facebook, X, Instagram, as well as Twitter. And my handle is Real Mark Haze, RealMarkHaze. And you can find me on there. Chat with me on there. Check out when my shows are happening. Check out my content. Check out the people I'm working with. And write to me. I like to answer people directly on there. I've got handlers, obviously, but if there's a specific question you have, or if you want to drop a message or you want to come to the studio or something like that, please do. Let me know.
Fantastic. Well, Mark, enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you so much once again. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And you take care.
You too.
Thanks, Mark. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.